Welcome back to Morning Trade Live. It is time to go inside out on NVIDIA and Block. Joining us now is Shana Sissel. She's the founder and president of Banríon Capital Management. Shana, thanks so much for joining us this morning. It is so exciting to talk to you. You and I talk all the time offline. So let's dive into NVIDIA. It's really just had massive strength this week. It continues to be kind of number one in its space. I was surprised that it's still up today. Were you surprised, and kind of where does NVIDIA go from here?
Well, first, let me just say I'm super excited that I'm on with you today, Diane. But to answer your question, I'm not surprised. The stock doesn't have a lot of competitors. It's in all of the most favorable markets, technology-wise, in terms of tailwinds. And it's been doing this for a while now. It's been coming up with these blockbuster earnings for a while. It had revenues well up over 250% year over year. They have really strong growth in their data center segment. So, I think the stock has a lot of room to run. We're only really in the second inning of a lot of the trends that they are most favorable for them, like AI, like autonomous vehicles, and even like data centers may be slightly more developed, but they have almost 80% potential revenue growth just from data centers alone in the next year. So not surprised. I think the stock still has room to run. Get a little nervous when people ask me, should they add a position now if they didn't have one? Because it feels expensive. But again, the PE is only as good as the E. And if you're always underestimating the earnings, it's probably cheaper than it looks. It's a favorable stock. I don't see any change in this momentum anytime soon. They've just been executing really well, and they don't have any major competitors. It's hard to make a bear case.
All right, Shana, stay with us. We want to bring in Tom White now, the co-host of Fast Market. So, Tom, when you think about where NVIDIA is, and you think about what Shana just said when you compare the P to the E here, the price-to-earnings ratio here, so how would you approach trading NVIDIA now?
Well, cautiously, I think it might be warranted at this point. It's at overbought levels on a technical basis with the RSI above the 75 level at this point. Continues to move to all-time highs. So you got to be cautious on this one. And I think a lot of traders out there, investors, are probably thinking, hey, I've missed the boat on this one. I don't want to get in at these levels. But there's an option strategy that can take advantage of giving yourself maybe a cushion to the downside in case it does consolidate or even pull back a little bit where you can still be profitable. So I went out to the March monthly cycle here. So 3 weeks to expiration, really short-term positioning here. And I looked at just selling an out-of-the-money put vertical to create that neutral to bullish stance on NVIDIA. And I looked at going out to that March cycle, expires on the 15th, and we're going to sell the 775 strike put, and then against it, because I want to stay risk-defined because this thing is volatile, buy the 755 strike put against it. So you're creating a short $20 wide neutral to bullish put vertical here. You're collecting roughly about a $6 credit on that. That's what you can make on this position, $600 per spread with about $1,400 in risk. But I think the key here is if you're collecting that $6 credit, it takes your break even all the way down to $769. It's about $50 below the current share price in there over the next 3 weeks. The probability of that short 775 strike put being out of the money at expiration is about 68%. And that's what you want. You want to give yourself a better probability of success when taking a stance in a name that's run up so far so fast on this one. And this is one of those strategies, Diane, that you can do repetitively. If you continue to believe that NVIDIA is going to stay above a specific price level, you can add on to these positionings on a month-over-month or week-to-week basis, creating short credits that still has that bullish stance, but you're giving yourself that probability that's higher than just buying the stock outright or just buying maybe calls on this one. And if you look at that big probability of success, over 68% at this point, that's what you look for when you can profit in 3 out of 4 scenarios on this. If NVIDIA continues to move higher, you keep that credit you collected. If it stays where it is, you keep the credit. And then also, if it falls but remains above that 769 break even, you can remain profitable on this type of strategy.
All right. Let's switch gears here. And Tom, stay with us. I want to go back to Shana and talk about Block. They posted their quarterly report card. Block's surprise profit here. Stock off to the races this morning, up double digits. So what's your takeaway in terms of their results, especially when you think about their overall numbers, and also I noticed the strength in Cash App?
Yeah, so they missed on earnings but beat on revenue and gave very good forward guidance. They talked a lot about maintaining a U.S. focus with Cash App. And kind of riding that wave. They did have some of their earnings driven by by cost cutting. They had some layoffs. They're trying to get leaner, and you'd like to see that, but you're also concerned that that's something that's not sustainable. You want your earnings to be driven by revenues and revenue growth, and not necessarily because you cut costs. So it appears that they've right-sized or right-structured what they're doing and to take advantage of Cash App and the opportunities there. But this, unlike NVDA, which is a market dominant player that doesn't have a lot of competitors, Block plays in a place where it's very hard to differentiate yourself, and there's a lot of players. So, I'm encouraged by what they said. Obviously, they're looking to restructure so that they can remain profitable. Their outlook was very positive, but there's still some headwinds here. So I'm cautious on the stock. This is not a stock that I personally would be buying, but it is a stock that has some favorable fundamentals. So it's not a horrible opportunity, and I think the stock will continue to do well because it is one of the first times it has been profitable, and that was the biggest surprise here.
So, Shana, I got to ask you, you make a great point about cuts. You can only cut so much. You can't cut your way to growth. What are the headwinds that you're watching out for, especially when you talk about, yes, Cash App is going against competitors like, say, Venmo, et cetera, but Cash App does have a core audience that some have talked about that is key to them. It's kind of turned into kind of a banking platform, if you will. So what are the headwinds that you watch out for when you think about Block?
Well, there's a couple of things. Now, I was encouraged that they talked about being more U.S. focused because foreign exchange is a risk there. The other thing you have to worry about is they have a Bitcoin business that has not been great and not been favorable. So those two things I think you need to be cautious of. And again, you got to really focus on the fact that this is a very saturated market. There's not a lot of differentiation against players. Yes, you mentioned Venmo, that you have Zelle. These are other players in that space. I'm not sure I can say that Cash App has something so differentiated that it makes them the winner and the clear winner. So those are just things to consider.
All right, Shana Sissel, founder and president of Banríon Capital Management. Thank you so much for your great insight this morning.
Thank
All right,
you.
Tom, want to turn back